Hi, welcome to Ray Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and in this episode, we are going to be looking at the great Ken Landgraf's New York City Outlaws. All right, here we go. This is it, the New York City Outlaws collected edition. It's a nice thick book. You see that? See all those pages? New York City Outlaws. The artist is Ken Landgraf. This is a comic series that started in '84 and was self-published, or he had somebody who was fronting the money, but pretty much it was done by Ken for his Outlaw Press. New York City Outlaws. There's all the faces of our heroes there. The character design and the illustrations were all done by Ken. Bob Hussar, I guess you say it, I think that's how you pronounce his name, wrote the scripts for these, or came up with the ideas. I'm not really sure how things were divided up. I'm not sure if it was kind of more Marvel-y method or whether Bob was providing pretty thought-out scripts. This book is co-published by the great Power Comics YouTube channel and Floating World Comics. And they have done some absolutely terrific work at finding these wild, independent Outlaw and Power Comics and reissuing them for us today. Many of these are very hard to find. I myself did not have a complete run of New York City Outlaws, even though I've been a fan for a long time. I was basically trying to find them in the wild, so to speak. If I had done it mail order, I could have gotten them, but I just wasn't doing that I'm not even sure why, but I just didn't do it back when I could have got them pretty cheap mail order wise too. But anyway, so here's our table of contents. Issue 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, it has an introduction by Jim Rugg of the cartoonist Kayfabe, who is a longtime fan of Power Comics, Outlaw Comics, and Ken Landgraf. So he's done the introduction, and at the end there's an interview with Ken Landgraf, and there's a cover gallery. Now, the reason they have the cover gallery is within the book they have the covers of each issue as they're going along, but they're in black and white to save money. And at the end, they have a little color insert, signature, I guess, in the back of the book, and that saves money. And that, to me, is an okay compromise. Now, the New York City Outlaws is loosely based on the movie Warriors, or inspired by. Ken says that when he actually did the character design, and he had not yet seen the Warriors movie, he'd just seen the poster, and he was inspired by that. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Warriors, great B movie. There's two versions of it out there. The director did a director's cut, and he claimed that he had always meant for it to be more cartoony, and so he put in some weird. He did like Batman and Robin, the 60s Adam West style sound effects during the course of the movie, and he added some very comic book type swipes and things to the movie, which are really distracting, especially if you're really familiar with it. So my suggestion is, if you can find it, find the original cut and kind of avoid the director's cut. But Ken was living in New York City at the time. A lot of these guys who did the Vigilante comics, they weren't living in New York. They were going entirely off of seeing the movies like The Warriors or Death Wish or Taxi Driver. And, Ken was there, and that kind of gives this a little bit grittier. Also, Ken's art style is really wild here. He did these halftones that screens that aren't really screens. He would Xerox them and then cut out these shapes and put them on here. and some of the dialogue is lettered by using one of those label makers, and because he wasn't very good at lettering at the time, and this just reeks of New York do-it-yourself comics. This is a real Outlaw comics. The first issue came out in 1984. You can see there's also a lot of heavy metal hairband kind of stuff in this issue. Like I said, this isn't real. They're not a real street gang. They meet over the course of the first issue, and by the second issue is when they have kind of coalesced into a group that are going to fight together and try and right wrongs and take care of bad guys who are fooling around in the city. And I'm not gonna go into. They show here. They introduce you Thunderclap Jones, Zebra Hector Rodriguez, Titan Johnny Apple, Whammo Chung Key, Polly Mixon, Daniela Marquise, Isaac Bernie Swansman. So, but all I can say is, here's the gang. You see these great faces. Ken was really inspired by DC Comics type superheroes and war comics. And, this has a very, he did work with, he inked a lot for some major comic artists, and he got to draw some issues of Hawkman and things like that. So he was on the edge there. He was in the mix for a while at the big publishers, but, the stuff to look for really is these independently published things that he did. And just, these comics are a great mix. They're taking all the cliches and the tropes of the 80s and even some 70s kind of, the exploitation, the B movies. And they try and play for the drama. This guy is going to become one of the New York City Outlaws because his kid brother has been shot and killed by this drug gang. And here's throwing stars being used, and these throwing stars are able to fly through a guy's body. They go through and sever this guy's spinal column and come out the other side. So it's a lot of fun. It's a bit campy because they are trying to hit these dramatic notes that you would see in these movies. But most of those movies didn't actually pull off the drama either. So I think it works okay. Terrific, fun action. Here's when these guys who are going to eventually end up in the gang together, meeting each other. It's the heroes fight each other, and that's something that happened in Marvel and DC comics all the time too. So the first couple of issues here, like I said, are drug dealers, but then Ken and Bob quickly move in later issues. Here's one. This like I said, this has a lot of this heavy metal thing here, because each issue of the New York City Outlaws was 80 pages. So there would be one story about the New York City Outlaws to start with, and then there would be like this one, art and story by Ken. And this is a heavy metal band who are the heroes of the story and, get to be all badass with their poses and stuff. There's a lot of heavy metal hairband stuff in here because, those are the people that were hanging out in the area with Ken, and, he just knew these bands, this kind of bands and stuff, and did art for them and things like that. And here's one, King of Punk. And here's the crazy thing about this is, I've heard him talk well about New York City punk scene and like the Ramones and stuff, but here's one where this King of Punk is just as ham-fisted making punk rockers into idiotic bad guys as any of those things like the Chips special or something like that, or the Quincy thing. Just over the top. That's a great. I like that picture of her. So that's kind of funny. It's Captain Jack, the popcorn crime fighter. So there's a lot of ads for local New York bands in here, and that's cool too. New York businesses, rather. And this is great because issue 2 famously had this red ink to help add to it. You see still all these homemade halftones here, but he's added the color red. This looks great too. Must have been a lot of work for him to do this. But he does it really well. It really makes me sad that he couldn't afford to do it, or maybe he didn't have the time to do it. For all the issues, just one color. Wouldn't always have to be red. You could also, I've seen people who alternate between blue and red, and I think that would have been cool. And here is shown how tough and cool this one of the New York City Outlaws is. He's trying to get information out of this guy. He's punches a hole in the pool table, makes the guy's head come up through there, and then hits him with pool balls to get him to talk. Again, I won't go through this whole thing here, but like I said, as it goes along, it gets more into other types of B movies too, not just the vigilante street gang stuff. There's aliens and monsters, and and this is one of John Jacobs' characters here, with illustrations by. So John Jacobs wrote comics and hired other people to draw them. I love his stuff with Landgraf. He brings out something special in Landgraf, I believe. I believe John Jacobs' writing is a step above. You can check out my reviews when you see the other Ken Landgraf thing with these monsters. Astro Man and Tammy. That's a great one. And again, here's a heavy metal band that he's. I call this hair metal. Look at that. This is that. See, these are great. Look at this. Kind of, that no holding line. That's kind of Steranko, Paul Galassi. Anyway, there was another. Oh, and there's here's a comic about John Michael Thor. And I mostly know him because he did a couple of incredibly bad but fantastic B movies. And so here he is in a comic. This is another John Jacobs backup thing here with some of his characters. So anyway, this gives you an idea. See how great this is? I mean, you need this in your life. Another John Jacobs thing. This is one of the characters that shows up in Dr. Peculiar, in the Dr. Peculiar comic. He's on the cover of it. This monster here, Vegeton. Here you can order these. I wish I had ordered some of these comics at the time. Here's the interview. And where we got here? And here's some. And the guy who interviewed him here. Like I said, he interviews him on the Jason Eisner. And now Jason Eisner, you might recognize his name. he's friends with the guys who do the Power comics. He does the Dark Side of the Ring, that those guys are all involved in the wrestling videos. So he does this interview. He, at one point, wanted to do New York City Outlaws, a movie. And so this is the poster, or at least one of the posters, that was created for it. So who knows? Who knows how that would have turned out? And here's the color version of the covers. Really cool. Okay, so that's New York City Outlaws. This gets my highest recommendation. Again, these guys have gone above and beyond. I'll just point out some of the other things they've done. The Complete Jauntar, which is, as homemade as this looks, the Complete Jauntar is even more homemade looking and dare I say, amateurish. Fantastic stuff. Just fantastic. Go check out the video I made for this. In the back here, it has some of the other releases. I can assure you, every single thing they've released is worth having. If you are into these independent, amateur comics at all, and they're varying degrees. Some of these guys, Ken, did work for the majors. These are just great. These are just great things. I see that in this book they're talking about New York City Outlaws coming out 2023, 2024. Well, of course, this didn't come out till originally. It was to be the end of 2023. It just mid 2024. Savage World, the Tony Lorenz book. I haven't even seen that pop up yet, but I'll have to check again. But here's Tony worked. He did art for some of the Jauntar issues that are collected in this. Savage World is taking its name from this. This was Tony's first comic. He was selling this through I think it was Facebook, yeah. And this is going to be part of that. It's going to be all his earlier stuff. Really fun. Here's Holy Vendetta, Holy Vindicator, and just lots of fun stuff in these magazines. Just great stuff. Check out my reviews of some of those earlier things. Go pick up the New York City Outlaws. You won't regret it. All right. Have a good one.